come up on the
I
picture.
doubt it. Hello and good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for another wonderful episode of Progressively Yours Health and Wellness Podcast. I'm Imani.
I'm Jay Bernard.
And together we are Sankofa Institute for Wellness. And we are excited about our show this evening.
Yeah, we're looking forward to our wonderful guest, Dr. Ez, as he likes to be referred to or as. We're looking forward to his conversation about natural healing. And I'm confident that those of you who are watching the show, if you are frequent followers, that there have been times in your life when you have either had someone who was like a sage or an elder who provided this natural healing to you, or you may have even done so to yourself. I was sharing with you that I had this bad knee pain one day, and I was sitting at my desk studying. I was at undergrad at the time, and I just put my hand on my knee and just started expressing affirmations that, no, you, and I was surprised that the pain went away.
It went away. That's good.
I had a neighbor who lived across the street who had sickle cell. Called me over, and I just kind of rubbed his stomach, and he later told me that he told his wife that he felt something. So we're looking forward to the conversation tonight around this theme of natural healing.
Absolutely. And before we get to that, though, and it's Dr. Stephen Ezra West, and just those of us who know him really well call him Dr. Ez. But anyway, before we get to our discussion with Dr. Ezra West, we're going to have Bernard do our opening, spiritual opening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I like Thich Nhat Hanh. I've read many of his books. He's an ancestor now. And tonight I want to read from Your True Home, The Everyday Wisdom of Thich Nhat Hanh. But before I get to that, in fact, what I'm going to read has something to do with the invitation that I extend to you each week as a part of our ritual. So if you would like to participate, I invite you now to just relax wherever you are, if you're seated and watching or listening to the show. Take a moment in this 1 minute of meditative moment, and I'd like for you to just take in 3 breaths, close your eyes, and let everything go. What has happened today that's behind you is behind you. And what is to happen later is ahead of you. All we have is the now. So I invite you to take in 3 deep breaths in and out through your nose, scanning your body and just noticing without attaching. Notice any sensations, any pains. Just notice. Keep breathing. The ringing of the ting shawls sends energies of vibration through the environment into our body system. These words from Thich Nhat Hanh says, go back to the body. Go back to the body. Breathing mindfully takes our mind back to our breath. And if we continue to our whole body, we go back to our body and reconcile with it. We get to know what's going on in our body, the wrongs we have done, the conflicts we're having, and we'll know what to do and what not to do in order to be on good terms with our body. With mindful breathing, we come to recognize our body as our home. We might say, breathing in, I'm aware of my body. Breathing out, I smile to my whole body. Go back to the body by means of breathing mindfully so that I'm able to center down and notice what's happening both within and without. Ashe.
Ashe.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Amen.
Amen. All right. It's like the book, The Body Keeps the Score. You've been going over that recently, right?
I'm reading that again now, portions of it anyway, because it focuses on briefly the healing of trauma. And one of the things that Dr. Bessel makes reference to is that our breath and our body knows everything, has every memory of everything that has happened in our life.
Everything.
Everything.
Even when we were younger. Yeah.
Now, from birth, from the moment of birth to this very instant, the body remembers everything. And so we don't forget anything. And so anything can trigger us at any moment, especially from those early years when we may have experienced various traumas. And it doesn't have to be extreme traumas, as I was sharing with a client today, but anything that would be trauma to us is able to be triggered at any moment, at any time. So breathing, as Thich Nhat Hanh said, mindfully is a gift to help us heal those deeper non-conscious wounds.
All right. Something to be aware of all the time, just listening to our bodies. And so we have a phenomenal guest this evening who's actually going to be, and I call it on tour here in Atlanta, spending time with both small and larger audiences. But before I introduce Dr. Stephen Ezra West, I would like to play a little video that he has on the opening on some of his websites, because I think that is a really nice way of introducing Dr. Ez to our audience this evening. So I'm going to ask Miss Janet if you would run that video for us, and then we will get to the real live person. All right.
Every miracle has a process.
If you can understand the process, you can perform the miracle. One truth does not replace another.
The healing arts are going to unite.
Imagine 0 pain with 0 disease. We can accomplish that. We have accomplished that.
Dr. Stephen West, the man behind Lymphology, the science that will unify all aspects of healing and wellness. Experience the change in your life as you begin to understand the principles of true health and wellness. Dr. Stephen West, the master healer of the Western Hemisphere, has risen to become the man to unify all aspects of healing and medicine. Dr. West has perfected his father's science, the same techniques used to train Tony Robbins, Will Green, and many more. Now, Dr. West shares his healing formula with you. You are the answer. Experience a complete lifestyle change.
Unlock your mind and body with the greatest keys to health and healing. Freedom from the current destruction of pain and disease.
Achieve success in every aspect of your life and truly live pain-free. Introducing PowerHeal.com by Dr. Stephen West, DLPMD.
My first visit with Stephen West, I had immediate results, and it was just absolutely wonderful and such a relief.
I hurt so bad after the car accident. It is just totally amazing how good I feel now.
A few years ago, I started having panic attacks every once in a while, and it felt like a heart attack. So when I learned about the lymphology, I realized that if I would breathe deeply and if I could get my lymph system moving, it would help.
Steve West has assisted me in overcoming a life-threatening heart condition.
Every day I'm getting better using these Power Heal techniques that I learned from Dr. West. My car didn't make it, but I did.
I was in a car accident about 15 years ago and damaged my shoulder. As Steve worked on me, all of the rest of them came and joined. They said that they could feel the heat just radiating out of my whole body, that I was really glowing.
The pain in my shoulder got so intense that I knew I had to do something, and so I decided to try Dr. Stephen West's technique, and I tried it, and immediately I started noticing some changes and a difference, and the pain level started to decrease.
As they worked on my arm, I got better range of motion. I was able to, the very first time probably, my arm was about like to here, and then they worked on it again. Steve worked on it just recently, made it such that I can move it up to this spot without pain.
Knowing him and learning what he teaches is undoubtedly one of the very best things that has happened to me in my lifetime.
Because of Steve West's technique, I was able to avoid surgery. I'm out of pain. I can sleep now at night without having my shoulder hurt if I wasn't in just the right position, and it freed me up. I mean, I have a better quality of life because of what Stephen West taught me.
I was in tears because they all came with love and surrounded me, and they were taking away the pain and giving me an energy ball. All of them were. And I could just feel my whole body tingling and cooling off, and the pain was receding. It was so wonderful.
Come experience the difference at PowerHeal.com.
Experience the miracles.
Wow. We almost don't need any more information than that. That was so inspiring. So Dr. Stephen West, affectionately called Dr. Ez, as you've heard, is one of the world's most knowledgeable, inspirational, life-changing, pain relief, regression, and empowerment expert, a top researcher, developer, and teacher of the cause, prevention, and reversal of the most powerful, crippling, and killer diseases such as heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. With 30 years of experience, focused primarily on applied physiology of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual healing and empowerment, he has blessed countless lives while speaking all over the world and consistently generates legendary successes and empowerment of audiences as he performs many live demos of more than a dozen new techniques, including his exclusive instant mass healing. Wow. It's coming to Atlanta next week, y'all. If you're in the area, you do not want to miss him. So we've got a small group of folks who are hosting and setting up workshop venues, places where we'll be able to interact with him one-on-one and as groups. So with that, I'd love to bring Dr. Stephen Ezra West to the front. Hey, how are you, Dr. Ez?
Hey, doing good. How are you?
Good.
Hey,
Good.
thank you for bringing me on your show. I'm in the middle between point A and B. I just threw up a sheet behind me. I'm in my vehicle driving from city to city, crossing the country. And, seeing that video again just made me realize more again and again how many people that I've touched and how many beautiful relationships that I built. Not only that, how difficult it's been just to stay in touch with everybody because there's so many incredible people that I've connected with, and the lives that have been changed. And it's been a constant thing the past over 30 years full time now. 30 years ago, produced a stem cell technique that I believe is the most powerful, fastest, easiest, safest stem cell technology on the planet. And it doesn't cost anything once you know how. There are no needles involved. There's no patches. There's no potions. It's just, it's just amazing. It's just requires a little bit of education to learn the physiology and which is functionality. Lately I've been thinking, we have this zero disease with lymphology. My father pioneered a new form of lymphology, and to him, everything that it represented was the science behind all the healing arts. It was all of the things that he discovered with cellular physiology. He was one of the greatest cellular physiologists in the world. And terrain theory, he was probably the biggest champion of that. We're going to get into that on this show. The basics are really important. Once you have a stronger foundation, you can build a bigger house, right?
Dr. Ed, and before you get into your talk, we wanted to just take our audience back to when you were younger, your dad and his influence on you and so forth. Why don't you, Bernard loves to ask a question. It kind of gets people kind of centered and thinking about their lives, and not just about, where you are now, but what has kind of brought you to this path that you're on. So I apologize for interrupting, because I know you can go. So I wanted to just...
Yeah, you got to watch me close.
Yeah. So do you want to...
Yeah, sure. Dr. S, thank you once again. I look forward to meeting you. So one of the questions that I generally ask of our guests for the benefit of the audience is to tell us who you are based on your own story from the age of 0 to 12, by means of just free associating whatever memories come forth that you feel okay sharing with us about who you are back there then.
Yeah, I was born number 7 out of what ended up being 10 siblings.
Wow.
And with that, I still ended up being the first one to graduate from college, which is a little bit beyond 12 years old. But being having 3 older brothers, 3 older sisters initially, and then end up having a few more younger brothers within a short period of time. I learned that we learn more about love as well as hate from those that are closest to us than anything else. And I ask people all the time, how many of you can relate with that? And the challenge of family is you get to know everything, not just what you're wanting to share, but all the stuff that you don't want them to know. They know every little secret, right? So the challenge is, can you still get along? And that's bittersweet. And all empowerment is bittersweet. It's tough love sometimes. Are we willing to roll with those punches? By the time I was, 6 years young, my father was lecturing in 200 cities a year, 5 to 6 cities per week, never charging admission. So that was right in the middle of this timeline you're asking for. And when he would speak, even at a young age, I thought I had just a creative imagination. I could see what he was seeing as he was seeing it, and I didn't realize that at the time. I just thought I had a really creative imagination. Yet over many years, I've discovered, I can piggyback on other people's vision, and it's not, I guess, something that everybody can do. So at least not really as well as I can. But I really caught my father's vision, and he discovered the sodium potassium pump that generates the power for cells to work when I was very young. Before I was born, he had already started teaching chemistry, and he got the Teacher of the Year award every year he taught, which is unusual for a chemistry teacher. And before that, he was at University of Arizona Medical School, headed to become an osteopath. And he started that in 1966. And so that was the 4 years before I was born. He was studying to become a doctor to teach people how to heal themselves. And one of the people he was going to school with got his license taken away right after getting it for simply teaching things that they didn't want taught. Not that it wasn't true, but they've been pulling licenses from doctors for years for simply teaching things that they just didn't want taught, way before COVID. And what we've seen with COVID is just a much bigger example than the public has ever seen before. But this has actually been going on for decades. We have less than half the medical schools in our country still today than prior to the first NGO, Rockefeller Foundation. So being young, I remember, the son being born in Arizona, which is where I happen to be right now. And it's been a while since I've been here, but I have roots here. So I was born here. I remember walking back and forth to school and feeling on a hot, sunny day, touching my hand to my head and just feeling I didn't feel it on my scalp because of all the hair, but boy, touching my hand to my head, I'm like, dang, it's a hot day today. So you don't know what heat is, just come to Arizona in the summertime. And you'll feel the heat, the dry heat,
The
different
dry
types
heat,
of heat. Yeah, it's a dry heat in Arizona. So my parents moved to Utah without asking my permission when I turned 9, and I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye to my best friends. And I'd had a girlfriend from 3 to 9, hoping to carry it on beyond that. And it was pretty traumatic for me to leave. Back then, it wasn't, 1979, long distance phone calls were pretty expensive. And I didn't want to ask and talk to my older siblings or my parents about how can I write a letter to this girl. It might have been puppy love, but it was still love. And her dad ended up dying. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to him. He was basically adopting me as one of his sons. He'd take me on father and sons outings with his own sons. And so that's a little bit of the childhood and being raised in a family that was going to church every Sunday, that had in their family home evenings once a week, that would study scripture and share and teach the gospel at a young age. And back then we had a young age, primary was after church on Wednesdays, and we play Tackle Town, which some people call British Bulldog, out in the front yard. I got pretty aggressive when it came to athletic ability, and I loved to play football at a young age. And even moving into Utah, I was on a really talented team. The same quarterback that I was playing with, in 4th grade, the same one that was the quarterback our senior year when we took state in high school.
Gotcha.
And he would throw the ball. We had one of the fastest receivers in the state as far as speed that would catch the ball. I would hike the ball, and my friend Ed would throw the ball, and Brett Mullen ended up being Tyler Anderson, who was our receiver as seniors. He broke all the state records in track. So that's a little bit about. I love sports. Watching, about that. I don't want to get too far ahead because I'm supposed to focus on more what it was when I was younger. And I had an older brother that was abused in the neighborhood that we'd moved from. That started abusive behavior right away that started really promoting abuse. And so I learned more about the dark side from him than anybody else in my family. And then my father was my greatest mentor from the light the whole time he was alive. And I've had beautiful opportunity to I feel like standing on the shoulders of some very powerful on both sides and learning just what I could learn just from that experience and seeing the dynamics within the family. That was set the stage for a lot of other things. I didn't know that I'd become too aggressive by the time we moved to Utah, but it was a lot of it had to do with what I was dealing with my older brother. And by the time I hit 8th grade, I was able to, a miracle, that was 14 years old. I broke out of some habits of being too aggressive with kids, even if they were older than me. I ended up being an 11th grader. But anyway, I'd been looking for a way out to escape what was the fighting game. And I can understand kids that get sucked up into it, how hard it can be to break out of it. And because I did it, and I feel like it really took a miracle for that to happen. So when I speak of helping people, and it's not just kids, but leaders of countries who have to learn that lesson, that I think I speak from at least some experience because mine, it was very difficult for me. It was extremely difficult. Might have been easier if I'd have just let somebody beat me up.
Wow.
Might have been easier.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very powerful story, and we can tell that your father is a great influence in your life, and you share with us a little bit more about how that early life influence has inspired who you are today and what you do. Share if you want to take us down that path.
Well, and connected with that is, out of your 10 siblings, why do you think it is that you are the one that became kind of the student of your dad, and the one who worked closely with him?
I was born on Father's Day, is what he would always say. And the truth is, I found out that Father's Day as a national holiday was born 2 years after I was born on a Thursday, and Father's Day is always on a Sunday. But at Father's Day, the first one was born on my birthday when I was 2, the first nationally recognized. And, I was, astrologically, I don't put all my faith in just any one thing, but I do my best to observe. And there's our alignments are all very different. We're all born on different days, and there's a lot to the alignment of things. So there's a guy named Nostradamus that was pretty intuitive, and Edgar Casey, who's known as the Dream Prophet, and Nikola Tesla, really intuitive people, and Jules Verne, who wrote 2,000 Leagues Under the Sea, plus The Journey to the Center of the Earth. These are some of the things that these people have in common is they have the same dragon head and tail astrologically. It's the north and south node, Pisces, Virgo, north and south node. And not everybody who has that, I have that, not everybody who has that really develops a really strong intuition with it. Einstein said that the intuitive mind is a sacred gift and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We've created a society that honors a servant and has forgotten the gift. And that usually things are discovered intuitively way before they're proven scientifically. So if there's a few people who listen to some of the things that come out of my mouth who think I may be a bit delusional, I'm still hanging on to that intuition.
That's a good thing. Yeah,
I do some instant mass healings, and I'm going to do one in Atlanta. I've done them online too. There are ways that people can access it where time and space isn't even a factor. But during COVID, gave me an opportunity to test out the theory of space. and everybody, with some simple instructions was still able to receive a transmission that happens. Superconscious principles are instantaneous, like God speed. Subconscious speed, wirelessly, is what really the superconscious is about. It's how higher realm beings communicate with each other. I been working with those principles for a long time. I ended up cheering and dancing my way through college, and I cheered for the University of Utah, and they didn't lose one single game that I cheered for the 94, 95 school year. They ended up taking the Freedom Bowl that year, and they lost 2 games to total nobody teams that weren't even on the charts, that I didn't even know were happening at the time. But yeah, and I think that the hindsight of seeing everything that happened the way that it happened, that's what it took for me to realize that the stuff was real. I didn't have such a solid knowledge. I was just, I think I understand this. Let's put these principles in action and see what happens. Type of an attitude, and take the leap of faith, and really exercise, something. Maybe that's a muscle that I can grow. So and now, getting from that, seeing the results, never using it for sports anymore, because once you know a thing, it's a different ball game. It's like before you know how to help people, how to save lives. Life's pretty simple. When people have a serious disease like cancer or major heart condition or major issues with diabetes, anything else, major pains, all you got to do is feel sorry for them if you don't know how to solve the problem. And life's pretty simple. But after you have the answers, after you know how to help them heal, how to help them regenerate and reverse those issues, then if you turn them away, it's a totally different ballgame. So my father never turned anybody away. He was survived off of donations people were willing to give on the way out the door. And he'd bring the worst cases out of each audience he could find to demonstrate, and let them donate on the way out. And people who believed in him always continued to support him. So it's very similar. I haven't, luckily I've been blessed where I found other ways just not to turn people away due to financial circumstances, and find ways to offer a step-by-step, because it's gone way further than what my father had developed. My focus has been especially on practical application of techniques to develop a whole new system of self-healing, self-regeneration techniques that don't cost anything. And some of them I learned from my father. There's 2 of them that he spent $18,000 just to see done once in the mid-70s, as he was becoming a napropath, which is a form of chiropractics, to align the neck and the hips. And instead of popping the bones in place, using energy with muscles to get the muscles to relax, and it's the muscles' job to put the bones in place. And my father, when he was lecturing 200 cities a year, taught the chiropractic schools. He taught at a lot of them, and he was teaching them that, hey, he inadvertently taught them how to have repeat business. You pop the bones in place, they leave, those muscles are going to contract, pull them right back out of place again. They're going to be a patient for life. So he was hoping to bring them the other direction, hoping to get them more into the education. And there's more and more powerful things we've discovered, that if you even know how to turn on your endocrine glands, you can align the neck and hips. I do that with everybody in the audience in a split second. And I've been doing that for many, many years. And the results are just a bonus. We want you to come and get educated. And the results speak louder than we can legally, I say. So, but I guarantee what we're teaching you is the truth. And this is like 100% of deaths of COVID had hypoalbuminemia, meaning low albumin in the blood. And you talk about lymphology, it's the main blood protein in the lymphatic vessels is the albumin. So it's the main water magnet. We lose the whole content from the blood every 24 hours, and there's lymphatic vessels that retrieve it and dump it back in the bloodstream. It's a one-way circulatory system for the most part, and a subpressure system, unlike the bloodstream, which is a two-way circulatory system and a positive pressure system. And before they knew about it scientifically with modern science in the 1800s, there's a guy named Dr. Starlings who came up with the Starlings hypothesis that said that they don't leave at all. And that if any leave, it still doesn't change the hypothesis or their theory. So that's still what they're teaching in the medical schools, is that they're too large to leave. They're still teaching what we call now Starling's hoax, because it turns into a myth. And once you bust it as a myth, and then if they keep teaching it after it's a known myth, then that's the definition of a hoax. So they've been perpetuating a hoax for many, many years. They decided in 1966 to create it as a hoax, blatantly obvious that that their knowledge was so great, they decided to form a society. My father was the first non-medical doctor in the world to become a member of that society. It's called the International Society of Lymphology. It's made of the top medical lymphologists in the world. And 1966, they put it together as not a pure medical society. That's why they held the debate when my father showed up in Florence, Italy in 1979 and decided to bring him in, even though, he was already lecturing 200 cities a year, 5 to 6 cities a week, even though they knew they weren't going to be able to shut him up and like they did the rest of them. They have the ability to take their licenses away, and they didn't have a license they could take away from my father. He was a naturopath and a naturopath, chemist, and a lymphologist. But his version of lymphology was really an integration of all of it. And I don't think he realized this because he didn't know. But from hindsight, I believe it was his Native American genetics from his mother and his father that helped him put those pieces together. And Native Americans called it the Great White Bloodstream. And there's something they call the web of life, which is basically the tree of life. It's how life is made of systems. Each system has a certain amount of laws. When we're in alignment with those, we get the fruit of the tree of life. And it really turns the life process of our cells on one way or another. And when we break that, it shuts the cells off. The engine that my father discovered, the sodium potassium pump, with his physics background, he wrote the formulas with his physics background, and formulas for life and death with a 31-step equation also explaining in more detail how it worked so that someone in grade school can understand it. So we have that in a book. He put all the answers that he found in a book, the answers to people's questions over the years as he gathered them. He ended up with this textbook. We have a second generation of that called the Golden 7+2. We're willing to basically give it away to people who order the Zero Disease class online. And if you're in the Atlanta area, you want to also attend the Master Keys to Zero Disease class that I'm going to do there. You pay what our asking price is. We'll give you the online Zero Disease class and the book, Golden 7+2, and all those questions he put in an exam with a page number in the book the answers were found on, so people can look them up and write them down. I'll give you the exam. And it was the most powerful thing he did in the course that he put together was the book and the exam, and he started certifying people. So this is
what was he certifying? I'm sorry, what was he certifying people in? What was
lymphology. They become a certified lymphologist, which is a CL degree, and it's a lifetime degree. But you could take that, you keep the original copy of your exam, give us a copy. We also have a Zoom that I did not long ago. I walked people through the first 1/5 of that exam, and I'm happy to give you the link to that too. So for those who want to, you can make a charitable contribution by Zelle at my email address that I think you might see on the screen. It keeps popping up, 508@clarityuniversity.com. If you just toss us $30, that'll help pay for gas that the cost of gas is pretty high. I'm driving from coast to coast heading to Georgia. By the 8th, we're going to be doing an event there in Atlanta. So you'll help me get there. You'll be able to have a live experience. You'll be able to experience that instant mass healing demo. And of course, those who decide to take this stuff seriously, there's a lot that I decide to do. Even in the first class, that's a practical application class, you'll be able to also credit that towards. But I'm always giving more value. If you don't see it that way, I ask you not to move forward. But I'm thinking, it's way more value that I'm giving people up front than what I ask them to take the next step. And the first class on practical application, I call it Race for the Truth. And it's amazing. Like 2 techniques that my father spent $18,000 just to see done once. Those are just some of the techniques that will that will show you how to do that for yourself, and much more, much more. Introducing people to the master key for the hormones, which is a different branch. There's different keys for different branches of our life that have to do with regeneration. And so these different branches produce different fruits. So one that produces hormones, HGH typically takes a nosedive and then levels off to nothing. And it starts taking that nosedive after the age of 22 in most people. And then when it hits bottom, it just levels off to nothing until we die. We figured out how even an 80-year-old can have a 10-minute walk, especially on a mini trampoline, and get a significant hormone release, which is normally impossible to get with that kind of light activity.
Right.
You know, and a lot of 80-year-olds love their walk.
And HGH is human growth hormone, right?
Yeah. Human growth hormone, according to Harvard, is the most powerful single substance that our cells can produce for regeneration. And we figured out the key to it. It's actually what the KC Chiefs have been using. And when they ramp up the HGH, all the regenerative hormones are produced. Even the pancreas produces insulin, so it helps stabilize blood sugar. That's the main hormone to do that. The hormones that help keep us awake and help us sleep is serotonin and melatonin. So there's skeletal factors that increase bone density that helps wipe out osteoporosis. There's vascular factors that take deformed vessels and varicose veins and restructure them to their healthy structure. There's neural factors that wipe out neuropathy that are part of what created our brain and nervous system when we're in the womb. We get a full cocktail when you activate the key principle to turn on your hormones. You get a full cocktail where not even bioidentical hormone replacement therapy can do that. There's supplementary factors they're still missing. And when you take them from an external source, like from a needle or any external source, your body says, oh, we don't need to produce as much. And not only that, the endocrine glands are also known as the chakras in India, 7 houses in China. When they stop the producing of their hormones more and more, they also stop producing more of the energy that they're capable of producing. And they're the main energy centers also. It's a different key that turns on that energy and then what turns on the hormones. But there's overlap where they support each other. Either one of those keys you figure out. We know that energy is one of the major keys. Most, how many healing arts just have to do with energy. When the energy comes out, the albumin locks. And that's what makes a tumor hard. The word tumor comes from its Latin origin, tumere, which means to swell. And so you can't have a tumor without that trapped albumin, that trapped blood protein. So when the energy comes out, it locks. And this is discovery 6 of the 7 golden discoveries that my father taught, 200 cities a year. And discovery 7 is when you bring that much energy back in, it unlocks. And how much energy we're talking about? The amount produced by your own cells, your sodium potassium pumps, which is why we can heal ourselves. It's why our body is so powerful. It's subtle things that great things can be done. It's amazing how everything is interconnected. And the more we apply proper principles, when we're in alignment with the laws of nature, we actually integrate more truth that has to do with those principles. Over time, more and more truth. And when we're breaking laws, we forget more and more of what we even used to know about them. And who was it that said, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free? Or my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And who was it said that when he's on the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He understood the principles of integration versus disintegration of truth, and what it turns out to be. We've been studying this stuff for a long time, since the formulas came in, and my father created a chart integrating our lifestyle into it. We've never stopped learning about it, and what it turns out to be is the integration and disintegration of truth also tie right into the formulas for life and death that my father wrote. And we're all meant to be geniuses, and it's not that difficult. In fact, we can be super geniuses. We're taking kids now. There's something called prenatal empowerment with the superconscious principles. We can activate their endocrine glands. Why wait 9 months to find out if there's a problem till after they're born to see if there's an issue? And not only that, you can decide what software you want on a computer before you get into the mail and turn it on for the first time. And we are way better than any AI hardware. We have the best computer software still today When a computer chip reaches its limit, you're done. You reach your limit. But when our neurons reach their limit, we adapt. And this is an example of this, neurons adapting. They studied Einstein's brain, and they found out after he died, they studied it, imaged it, and they found out that our brain has folds, and it's on the surface where these neurons are. Well, Einstein's brain had a whole bunch more folds than the average person. So when you go back to there's a documentary about a Homo species, not Homo sapien, that's us, but a Homo species that lived 250,000 years ago in Africa, and they were doing burial ceremonies in a cave, and their burials very preserved because of how difficult the tunnel system was to get deeper and deeper and deeper into where they were burying these bodies. And the only person we've ever actually found with a tool buried in their hand, an ancient tool, is from this cave. And that they were actually having a smaller skull. But if their brains had reached its max and then continued to evolve, they could just have more and more folds where you could have a smaller brain and have someone more intelligent than the average person that we have walking around our streets today. It's really interesting. And maybe we hit a certain point where it's like, hey, it's time to expand that size finally. But this is just, we have, we know that our neurons, when they reach their limits, they can evolve. And that's something that we have the best hardware, but it doesn't matter if you have the perfect hardware, if you don't have the right software. If you have the wrong software, you're still going to get the wrong results, right? So I love to just show people how to tap in and create the right hardware, the right kind. That's like when I do an instant mass healing, I'm creating a shift between their ears primarily.
Wow.
It's a data transfer, and you can access massive amount of data when you do it subconscious speed. And the old saying, God speed, I think it meant a lot more than just have a safe journey. I think the people who originally came up with it, they really understood. So that's a little bit about me. And what we're doing in Atlanta is going to be amazing, giving people actual experience and going deeper into what these keys are, the master keys to zero disease. If you have the zero disease class, if you have the book and the exam, and you're able to get through that, at least the 1/5 of it, you're going to be so far ahead. Every single person has done that. It's had their lives radically blessed for the better. Every single person, especially when they complete the whole thing, has had it majorly impact their lives for the better. Most people are going to, a lot of people are spending like I say, $30 just for the zero disease class online. But you've got my email address. You can Zelle. If you Zelle $30, also text me or email me. And if you want the bonuses that I mentioned, such as the book, all the things that I mentioned, the exam, the Zoom, for walking you through that's a 2-hour Zoom where I walk you through the first 1/5 of it, get through the first 49 questions of that. Very powerful. And shows you how to navigate it. So you'll be able to create, probably do the rest of it pretty easy.
So folks can reach out to you also if they want to attend any of the workshops and trainings.
Yeah. And if you would like me to make a pit stop in your town, because I'm traveling from coast to coast, doing a lot of that over the next month and a half before I end up in Hawaii. Okay. So that's where I consider my real home, is Hawaii. And so, yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Reach out.
Yeah.
I'll do a half of an hour consultation for anybody who has a need. I'll be happy to do a free consultation if you need that. I love to help people in need.
What I hear from you is that you do genuinely love to help people.
Yes.
And that is so, not that it's rare, but people with the kind of information that you have, are so many times people are just focused by money, making money and making a big name for themselves. And here you are driving a car across country, as opposed to flying from city to city. And so
I've had serious accidents and serious injuries. I ripped a PCL in a knee right out of its top insertion where I was out on a lake and T-boned. Well, I was on a wave runner, which is a jet ski that you sit on. I was T-boned by another right at the left side of my left knee, and the one I was sitting on was knocked right off its chassis. Both wave runners were totaled with my knee in between them. And I had my life flashing before my eyes. I didn't know if I was going to be able to continue doing all the things I love to do, but I reattached. Within 6 weeks, I was doing standing backflips for a week straight, drilled on cue, and basin pyramids that, with cheerleading, and that all go up at the same time, 2.5 high, and doing all the partner stunning, everything else. And we were pretty competitive. We were taking nationals every year during that time. So then I had a major motorcycle accident 20 years later. I flew over a car off a motorcycle. I had a torn disc in the L5S1, several bulged discs. I had a grade 2 tear in the labrum of a shoulder, re-injured the knee, bunch of other stuff, but I healed it all without surgery, no painkillers. And I believe that if you can, I prevented the inflammation just like I did with the knee. And the doctor, when he saw that, and initially he's like, should be twice the size in black and blue. They wanted to do surgeries both times. I just refused them. The second time was easier when I said, hey, how's the PCL? He said, what? Why? He said, I said, just show it to me. They said, okay, here it is. It's fine. I said, well, if I can reattach that, the doctor said that would be absolutely impossible to do without surgery. And if I can do that, I think I can heal whatever else you're showing me. And at that point, they couldn't argue when they found out I was doing something for stem cells, especially. They're the most powerful regeneration cells in the body. So I've helped reattach brains from New York to LA in 24 hours before they pulled a friend's off life support. A friend that was hit by a car. And the doctor said he'd never be able to breathe on his own. That the neurons that connected the right and left brain were severed. And well, when they get in the brain, the stem cells, they call them pre-neural cells, and they have the ability to regenerate even with massive inflammation. They don't like a single cell of a chicken egg. That's a stem cell. It doesn't even need any external source of oxygen because it doesn't waste any. The genes are tuned perfect, and one of those gene products recycles the oxygen. When it gets used for energy, we end up with oxygen missing an electron. That's superoxide. I call it oxygen radical. And there's an oxygen reintegration enzyme they call superoxide dismutase that converts it back to oxygen 1 million times per second per enzyme molecule. So I was on that when the main vein in my head was blocked for 9 months after the motorcycle accident. And that's how long it took him to finally give me a MRI for the vessels in the head. They call that an MRV to show where the blockage was. And in less than a week, I had it cleared. But I had a massive back pressure. I was walking around doing workshops, and I'm like, it's like most people would be dead or at least in a coma. And I was walking around doing workshops, and they say when a younger kid is having a head injury that they're just more resilient. Well, that's what they say when they don't understand the process. And if we can reestablish that resiliency, then even 80-year-olds, and one example is what regulates the 36 cytokines, which they've known about since at least 2014, but they didn't let it be part of the mainstream debate with COVID, because the same God particle that regulates all 36 cytokines also regulates the TMPRSS2. That's a gene product that's required for any COVID to attach to the ACE2 receptor site, insert itself in a cell, and replicate. And the same thing regulates all 28 genes with colon cancer, where only one of those has a drug designed to target it. And the same gene product, which is a master key zipper protein, tunes all 5,000 disease mechanism genes, most of which don't even have a drug designed to target it. But that's what drugs do. They target one gene at a time out of 5,000. And what God gave us just tunes all 5,000. But it shuts off, again, for some reason, more and more after the age of 20. And we figured out how to flip a few switches and turn it right back on again. So there's different branches. The genes produce all different proteins. Some of them are called cytokines. Some of them are enzymes. Some of them are super antioxidant enzymes, peptides, polypeptides, all different proteins that all do different things. Even the 36 cytokines, they want to, and they have, created different categories for all those, several different categories in how they look at them and what they're doing.
Dr. Ed, hold on one second. we are almost out of time. I told y'all he could rip, and then once he gets fired up. We really want people to come to see you in Atlanta. You are such a blessing and a gift to so many people, and we're honored to have you coming here with us. Someone from New York is taking you up. They said, which part of New York or New Jersey are you planning to visit on your tours around the country if you're going to New York and New Jersey?
Yeah, and the last time I was in Newark, New Jersey area, I'm going to be in around New York as well. I'm happy to go all the way up to like the Liverpool, Syracuse area as well. It's a bit further north, right? So Philadelphia, anywhere from Florida all the way up the East Coast. Anybody listening who wants to help throw a group together, especially if you already have a pre-existing group, whether it's a church group or whatever. I started with radio with my father over 30 years ago, and most of them were spiritual radio shows, mostly Christian radio shows all over the country. And I believe that that's still an excellent fit. Like physician, heal thyself. It's how God made the body to heal itself, no matter what religion. I look at the grand integration of truth. That's what the gathering actually is, and it all comes into one.
I like that.
We become more integrated. As we become more integrated, we become more interfaith too. But I look at, personally, Christ as the greatest interfaith leader that ever lived. But even Buddha had his version of the laws of empowerment, which was just his footprint, and all the symbols are different principles. Just like Christ's Sermon on the Mount was his greatest example, his most famous sermon. It's one principle after the other with their blessings and curses. So that's the tree of the tree of death and the tree of life. And in the Old Testament, we're shouting blessings and curses out of from different principles off Mount Gilead and Jezebel. And then what happened to them? They disappeared because guess what? Abusers don't like that kind of information being made available. So I've developed another 20-hour scripted docuseries that shows a bit deeper what we know about that now. We never stop learning about it. So we can create the kingdom of God basically where we're at now. And it's bigger and better than what we thought. It involves everybody, the greatest, all the greatness from everywhere. And that much light also exposes the abuse everywhere. And not everybody wants to admit their weaknesses, but we all have them as an individual, and they exist in every lineage too. No surprise, because we're all human. So part of human nature.
We are out of time. I'm so glad that you got so much in. I mean, it was all sort of a teaser in terms of what's to be shared. And I know a lot of you mentioned a lot of really complicated stuff, and I know that you break it down and make it simple when people come to your gatherings, just so that they really can understand. And I know your goal is to train people to help heal themselves and their families and friends. So we look forward to having you here in Atlanta. As we sign off, please stick around for a minute because we just have our little brief debriefing. But thank you so much, and we want to thank our friends and followers for joining us this evening. We had some mix-up with Facebook. Unfortunately, we could try to get all of that straight, but we appreciate all of you. Thanks again, Dr. Ez. Look forward to seeing you in a few. You're muted.
Thank you.